Welcome back to the Getting Results Inc. podcast. My name is Coach Gino, and alongside is Super Coach, Coach Ken. Super Coach, how are you today?
We are wonderful. Another day keeping America safe for capitalism, and we have a great capitalist amongst us today, which I'm sure you as Coach Gino will blow the bugle horn of his glory.
Absolutely, Super Coach. By the way, to our listeners out there, it's someone's birthday today, and that happens to be Super Coach. Super Coach, happy birthday to you.
Why, thank you. Thank you.
Awesome.
Appreciate it. Another trip around the sun.
Nice. And to Ken's point, we do have a special guest with us today. We have someone that is been a part of Getting Results coaching for quite a long time. I believe 2016-ish. It's been like 9-10 years now.
Even earlier than that.
And actually, it is a little earlier than that, yes.
All right. So we're pleased to have John Mitchell. He's a LPL financial advisor here in New England. John, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. We're glad to have you. Hey, Super, by the way, we've been getting a lot of feedback from some of our loyal listeners that are really digging the podcast. And
oh, really?
Oh, yeah. They like the way that, we do our thing. And so they're giving us a lot of great feedback on how we play off each other, the content. They're really liking the content and say, keep it coming. They get a little annoyed when a new podcast doesn't come out. They miss us. So thank you to our listeners out there, especially our loyal ones.
That's right. It's changing their lives. Becoming better
One
capitalists.
podcast at a time.
One podcast at a time, people. If you actually listen to this stuff and go back and take notes and listen to it a couple times, it will resonate in an entirely different level. Because quite literally, you never step into the same river twice.
Yeah, it's like a development program all in one place.
We should definitely charge for this podcast, but luckily our sponsors are really beginning to kick in.
Excellent. As right now, we are sponsored by Getting Results Inc. Coaching. So thank you to our sponsor. All right. With that being said, John, thanks for agreeing to come on to our podcast. And John, you're someone right now that we've been talking on weekly with, and you have a lot of great stuff going on. So first off, I'd love to have you tell us about yourself, your business, and anything else that around your background that you'd like to share with us and our listeners.
Cool. So, stop me if I ramble here. So I've been licensed since the late 90s. For the vast majority of my career, spent at corporate America, the big companies, a couple just to mention, TIAA as a wealth management advisor, and also with USAA. And about 7 years ago, decided to finally pull the plug and go independent with LPL. And so been living my life in business by design, specifically for those last 7 years in terms of the business perspective. And I've actually been, when I really thought about coach, I can't even really believe this, but I first talked to Ken somewhere around 2005. So it's been almost 20 years and been in the conversation, and certainly has been life-changing. I mean, Ken, I've told you this before, and I really do mean this, that next to my parents, I'm not sure I've had a bigger influence.
Wow. Super Coach.
It's his birthday. It's his birthday.
Why, thank you. Wow.
What a gift.
Yeah.
Positive male role models. America.
Yeah.
America.
Yep. So I am eternally grateful for the conversation and the literally paradigm shifting conversations over the years.
Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be there. I mean, it really is. I appreciate it. And I've got to witness the growth that you've had over the years. And I think you're one of the shining examples of who you're being. It's who you're being that matters. And hopefully we'll get to touch on your relationship with your family, with your boys, with your former spouse. And I think that is one of the most inspiring things that's possible for a person. Now, I know a lot of people out there, sometimes you have marriages that go sideways and that you have an enemy for the rest of your life. And I will submit that is not good for you. That is not good for your business. That is not good for your children. But the man that we're having some time with today shifted that paradigm exponentially. And maybe we'll wax a little bit on that. But before we go to that, John, you mentioned something that you're working for the big companies, and then you went independent. If you can remember, what do you think, what is the biggest difference, or what was the biggest shock to the system of having your own shop?
say, if I were to think about that for a minute, everything is on you. Most importantly, the acquisition of clients. Um, Servicing clients. I no longer had assistants. I no longer had the back office support that I once enjoyed, and also fighting my paradigm and what I had come from. So, the fact that I was spending time outside the office and fighting that guilt of being like, why aren't I in the office and where I'm supposed to be? Those are just things you don't think about. And so it takes a minute to really adjust and accept where you are in terms of the choices you've made. And so, yeah, just all that.
So it's also that distinction of there's always a great thing about being your own boss, which is just awesome. And then there's also a very negative thing about being your own boss because you're now managed by someone who's crazy, i.e., yourself. Okay, because each of us left to our own devices can get a little crazy. So, what did you find effective to help you from not going nutty?
Well, I think one of the core tenets of getting results is structure sets you free. And what I had to do was, when we think about the tenets and what you learn through getting results, and one of them being be responsible for all your outcomes in particular, and making sure that you take the mind and thoughts out of the equation and make sure you write stuff down and do the stuff that you commit to doing and keep your commitments. And so I think every once in a while and staying in the conversation and you're reminded of that is very important. And it's something that, particularly whether it's business or working out or whatever, just fallen, just surrender to the structure. I would say is probably the biggest benefit I've gotten from being on this side of the business fence.
Hey,
Powerful.
John, question for you. So I always like to know this about people that work with getting results. What prompted you in the first place to take on coaching? Like a lot of people that do it, right? That will make that investment in themselves. What was the trigger for you? Like what was the carrot? What was the thing that you were looking to accomplish through coaching?
Yeah, so mine's very specific, and again, close to 20 years ago now. But I was on my way, living the American dream. I was knee deep in corporate America. I was knee deep in marriage and starting a family. And in particular, with my job, I was a wealth management advisor. I was fairly compensated. I had a lot of friends, and yet I was unhappy in my job, and I couldn't. And I'm like 95% of America would switch spots with me right now, but yet I am the unhappy guy. And so a friend, yeah, actually friends of ours, Mr. Burns, I was talking to him one day and he said, you should call this guy who's currently running around the country with a bus with his picture on the side of it. Give him a try. Maybe he can help you out. And so I think it just got to the point for me where I was like, I can't believe I'm unhappy and I don't know why. So it was just kind of something that was nagging at me, and been in the conversation ever since.
Nice.
It's been in the conversations ever since. So 20 years in the conversation. Why haven't you gotten it yet? Like, why would you stay in the conversation? I mean, Jesus, what the hell's going on with you? 20 years? What the, like,
Well,
like one and done. Like, a man, 6 months, a year, 2 years. Man, I learned it all. How, tell the what we call the people out there who may not necessarily believe in the power of what we do, of why would someone stay engaged in a conversation or the getting results conversation for 20 plus years?
Well, you're looking at John Mitchell version 35.2.
I like that.
Right. There's a lot for me anyway. I really bought into as a kid and as a young adult into the a lot of societal norms, an American dream, and a lot of theories. Go get your corporate job, take the safe route, so forth and so on. Build a family, all that sort of stuff. Even now, 50 years old, I am constantly running up against like, geez, well, what's this and what's this? And I think the conversation, I mean, the fact that I'm in the conversation is so important, because what we talked about 10 minutes ago, 10 days ago, 10 years ago because I'm a new version of myself almost every 6 months, it seems. The way I interpret that versus the way I interpreted it just a few years ago are completely different.
Mm.
And so, I'm constantly in the, when we talk about certain things, and it's almost like the analogy I can use is like when you read a book and then you reread it 2 or 3 years later and you're like, was that even in the book when I read it the first time? That's kind of how I feel about being in this conversation all the time, because we'll talk about certain concepts and I'll be like, wow, that never hit me quite like it's hitting me now. And the biggest example for me is stillness. When we first did stillness, I was kind of like, I'm not really, I'm not getting it yet. But now, like years later, it's like, oh my God, like it's such a different, version 35.2 is ready to take certain things on that maybe version 10.0 wasn't ready for. So,
Wow. Great answer. Great answer.
Yeah. So, John, are you
It's
saying
not-
there's no point where you finally know it all and everything's perfect and that you stop?
yeah, no. Yeah, because, there's so many things for me now. My kids are, my oldest is 20, about to be 21. So here comes a new phase. I've never experienced that. And inevitably, there's going to be questions, thoughts. And it's not just about how to raise kids. It's about, who am I being and what do I, like I know that those things are going to shift. And I think, again, when you're in your early 20s, early 30s, you kind of think you have things figured out or the map is there and you don't necessarily question it. But when you're in this conversation, man, I mean, I don't know how you don't question things in a very positive way. Very positive way. Last example on this, it took me from the minute I realized that I shouldn't be in corporate America and that I should be my own boss, probably took about 10 years for me to actually do it. And a lot of that had to do with, well, I've got kids now. I've got this. I don't have enough money to do it. I can't take that kind of risk. And it takes time for those barriers, thoughts, and ideologies to break down for me.
Yeah. Jump and the net will appear.
There we go. I remember that one.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about the story about going to Alaska?
Yeah, sure.
Super coach. I was thinking the same thing. There was a lot of revelations from that trip, I remember. Yeah.
Force is strong with me.
Yeah. So actually, you can see where is it? This picture right here. That's my son holding up a salmon, and that's my
John,
my
go over
kids
just
and
a
us.
little bit more. A little bit
What's
more.
that?
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
And is that a bear at the bottom?
What's that?
Is that a bear at the bottom?
Nope, that's just my dog. By the way, that's a glacier too. That's a glacier next to the dog that we flew a helicopter to the glacier, and that was pretty cool.
Nice.
So so what I think what you're getting at is I'm divorced. I've got 3 boys, and last summer as a family, I went with the family, my ex-wife's parents, her sister, their family, and we all just had an awesome family vacation. And we got divorced several years ago, probably over 5, I think, at this point. And obviously, when you go through stuff like that, it's not always great. But when you have your commitments and you keep them, and you're committed to something, and you don't let thoughts and feelings run the day, and you really just keep your commitments, things like this Alaska trip are possible. We had such a great time. Alaskan cruise, 7 days, whatever that was, all that kind of stuff. So fantastic.
John,
we continue to do it.
So, wow. So you create a great relationship. I can distinctly remember a time that we were talking, and I think your ex-wife's name was Amy, correct?
Yep.
That Amy was either throwing your stuff out the window or was on fire in your front yard, or there was something, a very contentious and cantankerous situation where she was flipping out at you, about you, what's going on, etc. And I remember you kept repeating to her, what was the phrase you kept repeating to her?
Yeah, I'm committed to the best possible relationship with you.
As she was burning his stuff or throwing it out the window.
Yep.
He was saying, I am committed to having the best relationship possible to you, because that was from a conversation we had earlier when I knew he was having these issues with his family. I had to remind him that his wife would always be the mother of his children, and it was in his children's best interest that you had a peaceful, harmonious relationship, that it was for the kids' best interest, and to operate not from your best interest, but from your kids, which is actually really in your best interest. And he stayed true to that, which has always been amazing. And obviously, years later, they now co-parent together, travel together. But for some of you out there, imagine traveling with your ex-wife's family. Just imagine that for a moment. Now, how many of you would actually do that? Probably not many. And I think for a very simple reason, you're not clear on who you're committed to being. John was a stand for his ex-wife, his family, his future, and he stuck to it through thick and thin.
Yeah, super coach, and it's also presencing me to priority tree, right? And John's taken it to a whole other level because, we all know the priority tree. And by the way, episode 27 of the podcast. And Ken, you just released an article today on priority tree on
my
January
birthday.
16th. So
It's a
check
good
it
one,
out
too.
on our website or on LinkedIn. But in the priority tree, the top priority is yourself, taking care of yourself, mentally, physically, spiritually, then your spouse, then your kids. And Johnny, even through that tumultuous situation, you were still committed to maintaining that priority tree, which is pretty amazing, actually, when you think about the challenge of that.
Yeah. And by the way, talk about a great reason to continue to be in the conversation.
Yeah.
If I'm not in the conversation, as great as I think I am, I'm not sure I would have made the same choices.
Well, we have to remember what needed to be remembered. Right? And when you have somebody whispering in your ear, remember what needs to be remembered. That it's in your best interest that you have a harmonious relationship with your ex-spouse. Okay, and a lot of times we don't want to do that. Why? Because we want to get mad too. Because your shit is on fire and you don't like people burning your stuff or touching your stuff. So it's much easier to react to that. You're going to burn my stuff? I am going to burn your stuff even worse. Right. Oh, you like the kitty? Oh, the kitty's going away. I'm taking the kitty. So once you way leads on to way. Okay, and for good as well as for bad. We like to. I think we've talked about in the past, about this idea of A activities, A people, A places, and doing probability stacks in your favor. Right. There is nothing guaranteed in life. Everything is a probability wave. So that means if we can stack probabilities in our favor, okay, we're almost creating an upward spiral. But if it works for good, it must also work for bad. You can also begin to create a probability stack for a downward spiral. And what's crazy or scary about the downward spiral, just like the upward spiral, you can keep going lower and lower and lower until you end up in jail or even worse shit happens to you. Awareness, awareness, awareness.
Hey, I'd like to switch gears a little bit because for a couple things, Johnny, because we all do a kind of a weekly accountability call. We talk about things around, and I don't know if you remember about a year ago, John, when we were having our calls and we were talking about the Phoenix Planner and setting goals and getting clear on what we wanted to do. And you were challenged during that time, really figuring out who you wanted to be, what you wanted to accomplish, right? And it took a while. And recently you had mentioned, hey, 2024 was my best year in my business ever. So tell us about that. Like, how did you go from, really struggling to kind of figure out who you wanted to be, what you wanted to accomplish, to now having your best year ever?
Right. Well, it absolutely was rooted in A people, A places, A activities. And what I discussed, what's interesting is I actually, and this was a little bit of a confirmation. Toward the end of the year, I send my clients Thanksgiving Day cards. And what I found in that exercise was that when I would write, and I handwrite them all, the people that I was writing all the information, like, hey, I hope Larry's good, and I hope you had a great year, and I hope the trip was good, and all that kind of stuff, happened to be the people that I did financial plans with. And some of the other folks in my book, I would just write, hey, have a great day. And in other words, my relationships and my A people were also people that had financial plans. So I think it kind of confirmed what I really set out to do last year, which was really emphasize the financial planning and really getting to answer some really important questions for folks and really getting to know them. And lo and behold, probably my biggest financial planning client, without a doubt, 3 referrals last year.
Wow.
And,
So, John, why do you think that is?
I think it's because a couple things. Number one, when you're asking real questions and getting, and looking for real answers, I think the like and trustability, if that's a word, really shoots up because they know you care, they know you're engaged, and to a certain degree adds a little bit of value. And then when you come back and you say, geez, you didn't think you could retire, and I'm showing you how you can do it and what we're going to do and how we're going to implement it, it's a big deal to them. And so for me, and again, not that I have I know everybody and all that kind of stuff. It's just when you get in depth and you can show the value that you bring, man, it just goes up. So I recommitted to that within the structure of A, people, places, activities. And also, like we were talking earlier, the structure sets you free, and really following the Anvil project and the day-to-day and the making sure I made the calls and make sure the emails and making sure people had these financial plans.
And I would layer in what you give attention to, you get more of. So you give your clients the attention they deserve, they're going to give you attention back in the way of more money or referrals and so on.
Yep.
And John, when you do financial plans,
I'm sorry?
And when you do financial plans, are you usually in the presence of that individual, or are you Zooming them?
So it's typically like a 3-appointment process. So at least one of those, particularly like what I try to do is the initial appointment be in person. So I can lay everything out and ask some questions and everything else. And then what we do is we, kind of maybe Zoom it. I get information. And before this past year, I kind of half-assed it, to be honest with you, as I really telling the truth and being honest with myself. Now, I'd get probably half to 3/4 of the information I really need. Now I require 100%. And that makes a world of difference. And so it's about a 3. So yeah. So the answer is yes. Short question, long answer. Yes.
So when you were half-assing it, so that was the distinction. You were going like, this is good enough. I have good enough information, sort of, to deliver a good enough plan. Then I'm going to submit, and I'm going to put words and thoughts into your head. But at some point, you then committed to saying, okay, I'm committed to doing mastery. I'm committed to doing good work. This good work that I'm committed to doing fundamentally is for the benefit of the client. But the reason why I do good work and thorough work is because I'm a professional and I'm doing it ultimately for me, right? Or for yourself, right? That you get all that information because this is what you do as a professional, right? In the path of mastery, as compared to, well, I got 70% of it, 70% is good enough. Now, and at some point in people's careers, good enough is good enough, right? Which is totally fine. But if you go back to where we played to in the past about the 4 phases of a financial advisor's practice, right? Survival, thrival, mastery, and then purposefulness, is that once you get where you are, you do good work because you do good work, and you do thorough work because that's what you do. Like half-assing it is not an option. And if you do half-ass it, you stop the plan. You say, okay, client, we're not a good fit, right? I am not committed to giving half-ass level of service, etc. So there's a lot of you. I'd like for you guys to contemplate that, especially if you're having north of 300, 400, 500, 800, 1,000 relationships, or 5,000 relationships, like I know some of you psychopaths do. Are you really delivering good work, like that level of mastery or heroic work? Because heroic work is not for the client. It's for you.
Just add to that, because it was easier for me, because one of the toughest parts about putting together a financial plan is getting the information from the clients, right? Because they I had a tough week, I'm busy, so it was very easy to just say, all right, I have enough. And so I don't think it's a coincidence that when I now require 100%, that now my clients recognize that, and obviously deepens a relationship, gives them real answers, all that good stuff.
Awesome.
The commitment sets you free. It's your choices that enslave you, people.
So John, best year in business, and then somewhere around the second half of the year, I'd say, so you kind of launched off and you became like a
psycho.
Yeah, accountability wise, and just really being on point. So talk about that too. Like, what were some of the, because I think this ties into your version 32, 33, whatever the version is, right? Like another version kicked in. Not that you were lazy or doing it, nothing before, but man, you were like, you can notice that it was a trajectory for you. So talk about that a little bit. What kind of, launched that off?
Yeah. So whatever version this is, I'm titling it "Be the Person You Want to Attract." And the one I would say one of the biggest things that I've gotten from getting results is obviously the three tenets: be responsible for all your outcomes, be coachable, and keep your commitments. But the other one, kind of my fourth one I've added in, is tell the truth.
Hmm.
And not necessarily, although it's important to other people, but most importantly, tell the truth to yourself.
Yeah.
And so when I was thinking about whatever version this is and be the person you want to attract, at the time, this is in the fall, and I'm all right. I'm a decent guy or whatever, but in my own version and my own truth, I'm probably a 6 out of 10. And I'm like, that's going to change. And so I just really went on all right, from here on out, I'm going to schedule this. I'm going to, be better. I'm going to, again, try to be that person that I just want to attract. And so that's led to fitness. That's led to business. That's led to now doing, as you guys know, the 75 hard challenge that I've been doing now for about 3 weeks. So it's just whatever version this one is, it's be the person you want to attract. So,
and John, tell a little bit, and how do you stay on point?
Well, let me show you.
There we go.
Here we go. This is I don't know if you can see
there you
it.
Go.
So for the YouTubers, you can see that John's putting up a spreadsheet for those listening. There's a spreadsheet with days and accountability.
Now, is that just 75 hard, or is that
that's my 75 hard? So I track it.
John, tell people what 75 hard is, because we both kind of walked into that. But what is it exactly?
Yeah, so 5 categories. It's my own version, by the way, Gino. I don't know if I told you that. But 2 workouts a day, commitment to a diet of your choosing, a certain amount of water per day. You got to read for 15 minutes a day. And then the last one, which I haven't done, but you got to take a picture of yourself or something so you can see the progress.
And one of those workouts has to be outside. Are you following that as well?
Yes, I'm definitely doing that.
Nice. And
especially up, today being 17 degrees, it's something I wouldn't normally do. So that's another cool thing that comes with it. So it's I think to answer your question, I'm literally just tracking it so I can see it every day, and I've got about 2.5 months left. That's how I'm staying on point.
What gets measured gets managed.
That is true. Remember, it's always easy to drift. Structure sets you free. Remember what needs to be remembered. The more that you rely on things outside of your own skull, greater the probability of success. Once again, probability stacks work both ways, positively and negatively. So ironically, I'm sort of doing the same thing with 75 hard, but a little bit of revelation I had just today is that I've been tracking meals, tracking protein, but I didn't last night. I said, fine, I'll just do it this morning. Okay, but one of the things I noticed from last night, I was shorter the goal, right? I didn't eat enough protein. But if I was tracking real time, I would have ate enough protein. And I was just like, no, that doesn't sound like a giant revelation. But to me, it is, because inadvertence is the thing that sneaks in. Like, I can't tell you how many times I was getting my 10,000 plus steps and I'm tracking, I'm getting on there. And then it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, and I'm like a little tired. Who cares? Until the next day, it's when you care. So now I set up structures like Lord Google checks in at 8 o'clock each night and says, okay, what's your step count at? So once again, it's that level that structure sets you free. There's what you're committed to, and then there's how you feel. And it's your feelings and your thoughts that consistently get us in trouble. There's that old saying, I've seen the enemy and he's within us, or something like that. Or as Goggins says, yes, you're at war against yourself, right? Against your feelings. And that structure that John has created, if you notice, is a bastion or against feelings, what you feel like. Because we talk about this all the time, is that your feelings will get you in trouble. It's what you're committed to. But see, everybody's got this illusion like, well, I want to be free. I want to be free. And I ask, okay, what does freedom mean to you? I want to do what I want, wherever I want. I do what I want to feel like, whatever I feel like I want to do. And I say, no, that's slavery. You become a slave to your whims and your fancies. What really sets you free are your commitments, or it's your design. So, like what John is doing is bringing his design into existence. And by doing that, he's eliminating a lot of friction, which then creates bandwidth and capacity, which of course then increases velocity in his existence. And as he, I don't know if you heard this or not, he had the best year of his life last year in income, right? Of his life. That's right. And he just said he's 50 years old. So in his life, now if we begin to break that down and say, okay, why did that happen? A really simple answer, because he's in alignment. He eliminated a lot of friction. He got out of his head and stayed in action, which is a simple, easy, but not that easy formula to follow, because it's really easy to drift, especially if you're not responsible for your outcomes. And especially if you're not keeping your commitments, and especially if you're not coachable, it's exponentially harder.
Yep. So, Coach, I think we got to add that principle because now it's coming. I think it should be
Which one? Tell the truth?
advertence is right around the corner.
Yeah.
It's always sneaking around the corner. And what John has is a system set up to avoid or to stave off inadvertence that's right around the corner. Wherever you're going, it's always there, ready to attack. And it's up to us to keep to our design, keep focus on what we're looking to do, and not let advertence come around the corner and get you.
Spot on. Where it's easy to drift. It's really easy to drift. And if you ever been on a boat on the water, it's really easy to drift. And suddenly you're like, where the hell am I? Like, how did this happen? How did I get here? Why is my boat bashing against the rocks? And that's a great example of life, right? Sometimes your boat can be bashing against the rocks, which I'll tie back to John's little story with Amy, when Amy was blowing a gasket at him, but yet he maintained center. He had an option of blowing his gasket too. He could have yelled and increased the volume, right? A whole fight, and it could have been perfectly justified. She's burning my clothes. Okay, perfect. I don't think that's true, Amy, if you're listening. I'm just adding color. I'm a storyteller fundamentally, right? It's about the story. But that could have been a whole catastrophe. Right? The police could have got involved. Child services could have got involved. And once again, that's the beginning of the downward spiral. So by being responsible for your outcomes, remembering what needs to be remembered, you're playing at edge, or you're playing at advantage.
So recently, the three of us and more of us have read The Comfort Crisis, and I think we all got a bunch out of it.
Gino's big plug.
So let's share some of that, because I know that book was pretty impactful for many people, and it's funny, the ripples keep going out to other people as well. But John, I know you read it. You got a lot of. What was your biggest learning or learnings from that Comfort Crisis book?
Yeah, so there was a ton of them. But I'd say the biggest aha for me was, I've read Goggins and, those type of books. And I thought sharpening your mind, being uncomfortable was so you could, function a little bit better in society, be a little tougher, all that kind of stuff. But what the Comfort Crisis pointed out was when you're uncomfortable and you challenge yourself, it's actually fun. And so when you so I've done Tough Mudder, I'm going to do this SEAL Fit thing, this next, I'm already anxious for it. I'm already looking forward to it. And I know I'm going to have fun. When I do my CrossFit workouts, I never go there thinking, oh, I can't wait to go to CrossFit and have fun. I never do. But when I'm done with the workout, I'm like, thank God I did that. That was so good. And so with Comfort Crisis, I think was like, when you avoid discomfort, you actually are avoiding fun in that feeling, whatever it is, the dopamine or whatever it is of doing hard things. And that was an eye opener for me. I always looked at it as, geez, I'm doing this cold plunge because I just want to be tougher, but it's actually gratifying. And now I've started to look at things like that different, and I'm trying to seek out discomfort now in a healthy way.
Yeah, that whole idea of be comfortable being uncomfortable. I love that. Like I say that to my kids. I keep thinking that in my head as well. By the way, for those listening, The Comfort Crisis is written by Michael Easter. No, we don't get any paid from people buying the book, although I wish we would, because a lot of people have been getting that book as a result of it. But can you talk about one thing that you've really inspired me on, right, is the Navy SEAL thing. So can you just tell people what you're doing in July? Because I think it's pretty powerful what you're up to.
So I was just looking for a challenge, and I have for a couple of years now. So I got online and I just wrote in, Navy SEAL for civilians, and SEAL Fit came up. And this was probably about a year or two ago. And I was like, I don't, um, and again, whatever version 30.0 of John Mitchell wasn't ready for it. And what I did in, these last couple months was like, you know what? I got to revisit that. It's something that I've been thinking about. So essentially what I signed up for was basically a 12-hour, fly out to San Diego, a 12-hour, basically hell week for Navy SEALs, civilian style. And we'll see how that goes. Not everybody gets through it. You got to pass a physical standard and all that sort of stuff. So I'm training. Here we go. That's 75 hard. I got to do more. I got to, and I'm already thinking like, okay, how do I do this? And how do, so it's exciting. It's definitely uncomfortable.
That's hard shit right there. No doubt.
Hopefully, I'm sure it will be.
Yeah, if it's anything like the Goggins book and he talks about his SEAL training and all that stuff, I get nauseous even just thinking about doing that training. So for you to make the leap and already commit to it, man, I'm impressed. I'm impressed.
Yeah, well, I'll be more impressed if I get through it. So we'll keep you posted.
There's victory in showing up.
That's right.
Every minute you spend in it is a victory, and you stack those up, because once again, most normal people wouldn't do that shit, John.
Yeah,
psychopath.
And I'll say, just even the run up to it, even if I don't get through, I mean, I'm gonna punish myself in a good way, like from a physical standpoint, from here to July. I mean, here we are in January. So,
well, you're not going to punish yourself. You're going to challenge yourself, right? Because
that's a better
you have an image or an ideal to step up into, right? Like we may have talked about this on a podcast before, like the idea of, when does $1 million producer become $1 million producer? Is it when they get the check, when they get their W-2, or is it when they begin to act like $1 million producer? And are you doing the things that are necessary? And I know some of you are out there jaded and that you're $1 million producers. Okay, so Buttercups, I challenge you to be a $3 million or a $5 million producer. Like, what is the behaviors of that? Now, once again, the game can't be won. There is no winning in business. So it begets this interesting question: why play? Why challenge yourself? Well, the hard answer is, well, what else are you going to do? Okay. What's your option? I've heard there's a lot of good specials on Netflix these days. I mean, people keep telling me about these shows that they're watching, and they're like, Ken, did you see this one? Did you see that one? I'm like, no, I didn't. I'm like, that's a lot of time. That's a big time commitment. And I'm not being judgmental, but I am. So what's fun fact today? Fun fact of the day. Let's play with the fun fact of the day, John. So let's see, if you want to be a $5 million producer for kicks and giggles, it means you need to extract $40 of value per minute of your day, right? So 40 minutes of value. And what's interesting about that, that's a lot, right? 40 minutes of value per minute. And this begets another interesting inquiry. Is it you that needs to extract $40 a minute, or is it your team, your organization, or whatever it is that you're up to? So you begin to think bigger. Much like John taking on SEAL Fit, his training has to expand, right? He's got to challenge himself more, because he realizes he's going to be challenged in a few months, right, at an entirely different level. So that compelling future is not forcing him, but he is choosing to take new actions to live into that compelling future, which is by design, not by default. Right? He wouldn't be training at the level he's going to be training at if he didn't have a purpose to do it. Like, hopefully making that neural connection there. The bigger the vision, the bigger you then have to step up into or begin to act as such, so you can accomplish the goal.
Yep.
Damn, that's pretty smart.
That was really good. That was good.
Birthday. Birthday wisdom, people. Birthday wisdom.
Man, I'd almost
Gulf
end the
of
podcast.
America.
I'd almost end the podcast in that brilliance, but I got more for you. All right. So John, we have some listeners that are clients, of course, which is fantastic. Love that our clients are listening into the podcast, but we also have some non-clients. So as someone that's been through the coaching, continues to be a big participant in coaching, what advice would you give a financial advisor right now sitting on the sideline, maybe listening to the podcast regularly, but they haven't made the leap yet? What advice would you give them?
Well, I guess the first question would be, how's it working for you? So if you're sitting there on the sideline, are you sitting there like I was in 2000, whatever it was, 5, sitting there going, something's up. I don't know what it is. And, you're not happy. So how's that working for you? And if it's not working for you, I mean, at the very least, do something different. And all you got to do is look at it or watch a few of these podcasts to understand this stuff works. And if you want to challenge your paradigm, challenge your situation, this is a great venue and great minds to be able to help you do that. I said it at the beginning, game, life, influence changer for me. My paradigm is completely shifted. And had I just sat on the sidelines and just kind of, by default and stayed in motion, I can't imagine what my life would have been. I mean, this is a complete game changer.
I had a coach in high school that said, nothing changes if nothing changes.
Yeah, there you go. There it is.
Right? How's that for depth? That's a new principle.
Was
Nothing
that Yogi
changes
Berra?
if nothing
Did you have
changes.
Yogi Berra as a coach? Man, that's them deep wisdom. Kind of like, nothing changes unless nothing changes.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one.
It's always dark unless there's light. It's the sound of one hand clapping, Gino.
I like it. What is that sound? Is there a sound?
Fall trees in the woods. Does anybody see it or hear it?
What's next for you? What so beside the Navy SEAL, like what else is on? What else is something that you're excited about that you're working at right now?
So a lot of what I'm doing is physical, but on the business front, by design, my business has always been on the smaller side. If you look at other practices, I only have 60 households, 40 million under management. I know now I have capacity to be able to increase that and do it in a way that I'm still dealing with 8 people and working with people I like and trust. So I'm actively looking at different strategies and ways by design to increase my business this year, to make this year even better than last year.
Nice. Beautiful. All right. Super Coach, any last questions for John?
Last questions for John. We got the tracking thing down. No, I don't have any questions, but I just make a statement.
Yeah.
That, like, as you were saying, Gino, John became a lot more decisive, meaning that I think earlier in the year, you're kind of figuring, I don't know what I want to do. Like the blah, kind of like blah. But then, right, started dialing back into work. And there was always this amazing thing of way leads on to way, right? The hardest part of any journey is the start. It's that first, or as that old Taoist saying, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one small step, but it's in that step that leads to the second, or way leads on to way. And I think that's the beautiful thing, because if John didn't get serious about working out earlier this year, this whole SEAL Fit conversation or going to getting that experience wouldn't be in the mix. But I'll also submit that SEAL Fit experience, we're running a probability wave now that's a game changer, right? That shifts his being. He either meets somebody there or something happens or he gets a deeper insight into himself. I mean, literally, he's going into a crucible. And no matter what crucible you go into, you come out a different person on the other side. And I'll submit it's a crucible by design, which is better than default, right? Life will either unfold by design or it'll unfold by default. No matter what, it's unfolded. Okay? But by doing hard things by choice, the crucible on the other side of that is going to be exponentially rewarding. It's a potentially game shifter or the singularity concept, which is pretty cool and takes a lot of chutzpah. Did we talk about balls to skill level yet? No, we probably haven't talked about that yet.
We'll do that on another podcast.
You might need to edit that one out. But yeah, John's showing a lot of chutzpah.
Gosh. Super Coach, thanks. John, it's been awesome having you on our podcast today. Really great stuff. And we'll definitely have to have you on again to check in on you maybe another 5-6 months down the line, or right after you do the
Yeah,
SEAL
post seal
training would be
fit.
an awesome time to talk to see how that went for you, for sure.
Yep. Well, thank you very much. It's been great.
Awesome. To our listeners, if you enjoyed today's podcast and got value from it, please follow us, share us. We can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, and on our website, gettingresultsinc.com under resources. We look forward to our next podcast with you. Until then, be great.